I just figured out what you guys.
What?
I hadn't heard you, and I thought you said hour, and I was like, I'm so confused, but I figured it out.
I'm gonna send it out, so it should be ready. Let me know when y'all are ready. Man does not just refer to a particular gender, but to the composite racialized gendered ableized assemblage of humanity that structures their life world. Man has speech, man has voice, but man does not hear our speech. There is an empathetic disconnect between the media and the black woman mailing who has just lost her child. Man does not see her, he does not empathize with her as a mother who has just had a child ripped away from her, but rather as the mother of a criminal. Society does not register screams as legitimate pain, but the animalistic groans that do not lie in our scope of empathy. We are simply flesh. Man considers himself distinct from flesh because flesh is the human body stripped of its humanity, no more than just meat packaged in skin. From the view of the world, man controls flesh is empty, abject, immobile, death, an object. White being, civilization, modernity, man, white supremacist, ableist, society, patriarchal capital, all synonyms to explain who and what writes the script of being that mobilize dominant epistemes that necessitate violence as a condition of existence. I refuse to find commonality and points of cooperation with these multifaceted forms of oppression. Is it really that confusing to you, Rodriguez and Gooden 16? I am against unity, militantly so and full of desire for radical community, concession for a political life to white being cannot tolerate as some of us require to live to see others. Critical guests have to participate, creating possibilities of collective exercise, radical political homogeneous, demystify white being, and bold and even productively weaponize the methodologies against human life, differentiate notions people have created, forms of culture, reproduction, survival, revolt, everywhere all happens on time is the underside of the human of the official scripts of the modern word can never adequately rationalize or eliminate, does not require to deform or self-mutilate into the human methodologies of the white being. There isn't just one way of white being. White being cannot be conflated with white people. Fanon is correct in stressing the abnormalized structure of power that inherent white bodies, how white bodies are socio-political and institutionally and in given moment white beings constitute another layer of dominance. It doesn't make sense to find all of the insurgent activities being folded into white being, virtue, right, civilization, marriage, and what would it mean to diversely displace the sense of white being thrives just in particular differentiated conditions of historical vulnerability, but beyond man's perceptible capabilities, beyond man's way of knowing, flesh radiates queers white moving at frequencies unintelligible to man's concept of agency, voice, and speech. Best of all, man can never achieve the elusive promise of impossible freedoms that are condition of the flesh's world. With that in mind, how can man achieve freedom, free speech? Speech is the condition of unfreedom, of being stranded in the past, present, future, apocalypse of man world. Instead, I choose to project myself onto the unhuman future to explore the stars that so many will never reach. James 14. Flesh is not immobile, it moves at frequencies that are invisible to humanist modernity. Episteme. Flesh is not an object of exclusion in the existence of flesh is the practice of being non-human, habeas viscous, free to humanist practice, putting out an out of phase with man and think with the interrupted dreams of freedom found in those spaces devoid of full of human life. Flesh does not have voice, of illegible, triptych, advice are not audible as to senses because it vibrates beyond the human accessible spectrums of hypervisible yet also illegible hieroglyphics of the flesh, more brilliant than the humanist sun, both sparked and masked by the frequency of man precisely so that it doesn't burn him. Voice or sound is the condition of humanity. Voice is the condition of his speech. Racializing sunlight tunes his vocalization is signal, not quite human vocalization, nor treating voice as a free political property naturalizes those gendered, sexual, ableist, racial hieroglyphics of flesh that distinguish signal from noise. Man's present categories of intelligibility, agency, liberty, voice cannot capture the modes of relationship made possible by the hieroglyphics of the flesh. As habeas viscous has anything like a voice, it's a radioactive buzzing of the stars that travel through space at the speed of light. The less that agency has things, it's a freedom, or assemblage of freedom beyond the world of contention. Man freedom is a leap or jump is what out of sync with man's vibe and had entirely different dimensions. But to project ourselves as an unhuman future, to pursue ways of living that are unhealthy for man, but still vibrant ways of being otherwise than human. Thus, the advocacy, I affirm the value inherent in the conceptualization of speech that exceeds man through habeas viscous. Instead of trying to assimilate into the voice of man, we weaponize our noise and embrace its illegibility. We use the noise, the buzzing of habeas viscous to access the freedoms that lie on frequency beyond man world and access other dimensions, other ways of living that are vibrant to us. Universities do not exist as singular physical and legalistic infrastructures, but are network ecologies and mentioned power relation, producing impartial knowledge that are transmitted ideas from individual to individual. Similarly, debate is a formative space. What we learn to be reverberates across time and space in intermediate ways, foreclosing or facilitating potential words that affirm or negate life that disaligns from man. Therefore, you must prioritize the proximate and interpersonal politics of now Hunter et al. 14. Universities consist of overlapping fields. Boundaries are in a state of flux. Social forces from within and outside field contest. The very logic and practice of the field become so deeply embodied. Individuals that operate to taken for granted love once a deeply embedded institution structures individuals' power to impose a culture dominance and repression due to its familiarity. And academics have so much investment in the logic of their practice with this logic deemed unquestionable logic is passed on individual to individual and everyday interaction. Culture practice is a threat to social dynamics. There's an important role in determining how universities knowledge production. The role of the ballot is to disalign from man's Copernicus sun, a metaphor to understand how man's dominant episteme creates one way of being in this world, one that creates the narrow conceptions of man's subjectivity and existence. We cannot abide to the notion of man's white being if we want to survive. Instead, we must resist the desire to come together with the white being and weaponize our differences through disalignment. The fleshy access of the AC performs disequilibrium with man's world, eschewing respectable knowledge, practice, and facilitates ideological ways of living that disrupt claims of universal humanistic existence. I refuse man's bargain for respectable inclusion that comes at the cost of self-mutilation, sanitized models of the AC's politics that are predictable for man's world, sacrifice liberation for short-term comfort. Instead, we should dare to look towards an ideology beyond man. These modes are James 14. These modes eschew stabilization into a consistent practice legible to academic institutions of proper knowledge. They will fail to register legitimate knowledge because they require relationship with the ways of being that make it impossible to sufficiently embody epistemic credibility and the implicit horizons that lead to success in the academic industrial complex. Working with women of color theory must also, if it is to be practiced freedom, means working with the women of color in real life, not just in theory, given white supremacist patriarchal organizations. Academia working with women of color is going to move you out of privilege and prestige. We cannot try to make it academically respectable to demonstrate our ability to assimilate into the universe of the academic humanities, but philosophical respectability is white supremacist, ableist, capitalist, patriarchal, and not so successful disguised philosophy. We should make us less respectable humanists and out-oriented practice of freedom and pedagogy of the oppressed. The point isn't to can they be like us, like good liberals? How do we tolerate them? To feed back into a modulated academic human, rather follow their lead out of the respectable, legible universe of the academic humanities into outer space to orbit around something other than humanism's Copernican Kantian sun. So join me beyond the Copernicus sun, projecting ourselves into the stars that exist along the frequencies galaxies disaligned from man's world. It may seem daring, irrational, but our survival has never been promised, even in spaces like debate.
Okay, is everyone ready? Let's talk about the advocacy text. What does affirming the value inherent in the conceptualizing speech in the context of habeas viscus do?
Sure. So backstory, the way that we define speech is specific to man, where man is the being that is a cis heteropatriarchal being that assumes dominant structures, right? So the way that we define speech, or the voice in the topical version of speech, can only be exhibited by those who lie
speech is
in
something
man.
that is only accessible to like the dominant.
The type of speech that we're talking about. Other speech is seen illegible
What's the type
by
of speech
dominant.
you're talking about?
The one that we just mentioned, the one that's recognizable and legible in man's eyes.
Okay, cool. Last line of your app says that even in spaces like debate, we don't have these forms of like liberation. What does the 1AC do?
We don't say that we don't have forms of liberation. The argument is that we always exist in spaces. We are here, but these spaces are never made from us. We
Okay,
are
so how does
in these
1AC
spaces,
change
but
that?
not of these spaces.
Like you
we
reach
change
out, what
that
happens
by
after
vibrating on the frequencies that man cannot recognize. We embrace unintelligibility and
How do you
strategically.
embrace unintelligibility?
Do you want me to do it like in the app?
Yeah.
Sure, the rereading of the topic is one method, but there are other ways to do so. The way
So
that we
rereading the
redefine
topic.
speech and the analysis of how legibility acts and the theorization of power within the AC is one
Okay,
part of
cool.
it,
So you
but the
reread-
performativity aspect is also there. The fact that we are obscure,
Right,
but
so
we're
it's a
strategically
question of you
exposing
like reading
ourselves.
this app in the debate.
It's not a
yes?
question of me reading the app, it's a question of the scholarship, the theorization of power,
Okay,
as
so it's a
well as
question of the
performativity
scholarship behind
and
your
the
app then.
affectivity. There
Okay.
are multiple things.
The scholarship behind your app and the affectivity behind that?
That's two of them.
Alright,
yes.
cool. Then let's talk about the scholarship behind your app. What about black people is sticky or thick? Because you write habeas viscus with an O. So let's talk about that scholarship. What does that mean?
Habeas viscus?
Yeah,
Sure.
no.
So habeas means to have. Viscous is viscosity. So habeas viscus literally means to be viscous or fluid, right? The way that we conceptualize identity isn't through fluidity. We realize that structures
The term
exist.
viscous usually refers to a liquid and about how sticky that is. The term viscous without the O that Wahelier is referring to is talking about organs within the body. So how do you get rid of these assemblages, which are written about in the context of the body?
Right, sure.
When you embrace
Habeas
these, like,
viscous is
viscosity?
specific to racialized assemblages. We understand that blackness defines the way
I
that
don't
we are
think you're understanding my
codified in the
question.
world.
My question is, why have you changed the original theory this way to talk about viscosity when it was supposed to be about organs that are typically within the chest of the body?
It wasn't supposed to be
Really
about the way the chest is in the body. I'm talking about viscous in this
Wait,
sense
so you
that-
just straight up
I'm
don't
talking
understand the
about
scholarship
viscous
behind your app.
Viscous means liquid, right? You agree? Something that's sticky. It acts
Yeah,
like
and I
syrup.
agree that
It
that's
acts
not
like
what your
syrup.
scholarship is supposed to, like, that's not how you're supposed
I
to
argue
spell
that it is. That's specific to what the James card is talking about. We recognize identity as something that
Okay,
is
the
viscous.
James card.
Yes,
Let's look
both
at
of
that.
the James card.
Which James card?
First one talks about habeas viscous.
All right, so
Specific
then
to
why
the
does the
scholarship.
article say notes on Wahelier is habeas viscus with a U On some, why posthumanisms are better than other. Why did you change viscous with a U to viscous with an OU?
Spelling error.
Spelling error?
Yeah. I
So
don't
you
know
don't care enough
if
about the black scholarship behind this to
I
like
do
spell it
care.
correctly?
Of course
You
I
just
care.
defended it and said that viscosity means like liquid.
If a spelling
Like,
error
this means
is enough to drop
It's
me
not a
and the
spelling error. It's a
illegibility-
question of how you just represented it in cross-ex. You said it means fluidity, like liquid. That's not what
not
the term means
liquid,
at all.
like syrup. The interpretation of how I show it
That's
is-
not what this
You can
means.
argue that in the NC. That's
Okay,
fine.
cool.
I'll defend it. Yeah. Can I see how you spelled it?
The same way James spells it in
Yeah,
his
that's how
article.
it's supposed to be spelled.
V-I-S-C-U-S.
Yeah.
Well, you just defended it meaning viscosity, so.
I do defend it meaning viscosity. I'll stick to that.
That's just not a definition of how the Black Scholarship writes about it.
I'll re-explain in the 1AR. I'll defend viscosity.
Okay, re-explain Black Scholarship just like outright.
Do you mind if I close the window? It feels cold. Thank you.
Okay, 258. Okay, consent. Let me look at it. The order is going to be 2 off in the case.
Two? Give me 1 second to label these.
Alright, is everyone good? First off is the ontological blackness K. This position is called ontological blackness, where we will flip the script. The affirmative rhetorically chains blackness to whiteness and destroys the creative possibilities of blackness, meaning that blackness can never be its own thing in relation to the world, but is always subservient and in relation to whiteness and what it forces it to be. There's a couple of late scenarios. First is that it's self-loathing and internalized stereotype, and their comparison of blackness is the opposite of white civility. Their conception of this idea of man and how blackness is always compared in relation to man. The knowledge locks us into blackness and into being a savage and unworthy. Also, the marking of blackness to whiteness eliminates the existential creativity that blackness could utilize to carve out the original existential space for itself. The other linked scenario is that authenticity testing in black intercultural violence. Certain black people get to seem authentically black because you define black in one specific way where anything else is concerned is to be selling out. For an example, Rikers MN is black because they tell jokes in debates, whereas Aaron Timmons and Chris Raynor are not. This causes black bodies to police themselves and causes psychic and existential trauma that continues to give white supremacy control over their lives. First, exposition. Postmodern blackness is at odds with ontological blackness, which connotates categorical essentialists and representations depicting black life as experience. Black identities are fluid and occur in multiple sites. Anderson 95. Ontological blackness connotes categorialist, essentialist, and representational languages depicting black life. Postmodern blackness recognizes the permanency of race, category, and through formation. However, it also recognizes that black identities are continually being reconstituted as African Americans and inhabit widely differentiated social spaces. Differentiated spaces along divisions of education. African Americans are negotiating the various languages of race, class, gender, and sexuality. Also, link. The affirmative's rhetoric describes the notion of ontological blackness, subjugating black bodies' interest in fulfilled individuality, and causes black to be a pseudo-species. Anderson, 95. Race linguistically designates ethnic groups. Race as accidental quality rather than informal status. For that person, it has to do with historical development. Their encounters with other communities, that economic conditions under which these propagate themselves. In metaphysical ontology, race denotes essential properties that lack of one property renders one pseudo-species. The idea of pseudo-species is connected to group identity formation as human groups construct their identities in relation to other animal groups that develop categorical ways of solidifying their identities by defining them in terms of positive qualities that they wish to affirm while projecting negative ones onto others. Pseudo-species is a name for this othering activity. The pseudo-species is one of the more sinister aspects of all group identity. Race is one classification under which human group differentiation occurs. In the West, racial representation is closely identified with the Western aesthetic category of genius. European intellectuals define their ancients exhibiting racial genius. This racial aesthetic makes the renders other false species lacking essential properties, has determined how African Americans represent themselves in a mirror of European genius. Ontological blackness signifies blackness that white has created. Racial genius refers to the exceptional, sometimes essentialized cultural qualities that positively represent the racial group in the action of at least one group's members. Ontological blackness entails category reasoning and a racial black aesthetic, philosophy of racial consciousness. Under ontological blackness, the conscious lives of blacks experiences is bound by unresolved binary dialectic, slavery, and freedom. Such binary qualities admit the possibility of transcendence or meditation. The dialectical structure of ontological blackness provides a unity of representational intentions in cultural studies. Ontological blackness signifies the totality of blackness as binding of black life experience that takes narrative formations and emphasizes hero capacities of African Americans to transcend individuality. The black community is often represented as surviving under unprecedented struggle. Division to ontological blackness categories and interest in racial solidarity, loyalty, and authenticity conceals and subjugates and calls in question to African Americans' interest in full individuality. I'll isolate a few specific links to the entirety of the app. First is that the role of the entire framing section that they did at the top of 1AC. They characterized the entirety of their 1AC and people of color in relation to this conception of man, which is some white heteronormative conception of able-bodied conception of what it means. And those are the people that write the script. A direct quote from their beginning is that it's the white being who writes the script in the first place. This is bad for a few reasons. First is that it links in this idea of ontological blackness rather than postmodern blackness, where blackness is only valuable and is only able to create certain things for itself in relation to whiteness and in relation to their conception of men in the first place, which gets rid of things like black agency, which means they cannot conceptualize themselves in other ways beyond what whiteness and man have told them to do in the first place, which means the entirety of the 1AC turns itself because they say that they're trying to leave the man their idea of the Copernican sun, but they just end up replicating that in different forms because their entire theory is contingent on how white people represent blackness in the first place. It turns all their offense. Also, ontological blackness is towards conditions of black life and experience, racial humanism that's incompatible and odds with the new postmodern cultural politics of black identity. Anderson, 95. A critique of ontological blackness suggests that there is good critical reason for presenting beyond the centrality of black culture. First, ontological blackness towards far too much conditions of African American experience in the United States. Structure discourse and knowledge conventional interests of class, gender, sexual is different race. Therefore, racial identity is not total, although it's always present. From a religious point of view, race is made total. Then ontological blackness is idolatrous, approaching racial hedonism. Mark the card of hedonism, that's in the middle of the card. Thus, the alternative is to reject the app's performance of ontological blackness in favor of methodology of post-blackness. Post-blackness does not mean forgetting the history of black struggle in any context, nor does it mean that there's no shared struggle or identity struggles with individual black people. What it does mean is that because history has affected the black body in the way that it has, should not mean that black bodies should be locked into the monolithic notions that destroy individuality, and most importantly, opposite what their evidence and articles advocate that there should be no authentic or correct way to do blackness. Adams 2K11. Post-black sensibility is unfettered by history, does not feel the burden of having always represent the race, has a nuanced understanding of the utility and riskiness of both white and black case will do is sneak among police free-floating, making the broad vista of post-black the repudiation of blackness is an assertion that we now live in a post-race or post-racial world, rather than the meaning of blackness to allow for more individuality of expression. There are 40 million ways to be black. Given that there's no particular mode of black, one should be privileged over the other. There's two issues being negotiated here. First is skepticism of monolithic blackness that allow little room for individualized expression. There's only one approved way to be black that is a positive, fairly cautious way of presenting the self that is always informed by the need to represent the race in an authentic and humanistic way. Initially, response to the ever vigilant punitive white gaze, as over the time the version of black became incorporated in almost equally self-punitive black gaze. The second issue is strong dissatisfaction with the evidence of the traditional blackness that results in dissatisfaction and the superior creative ways of being black. The skeptical stance towards history, historical group struggle is equated with homogenizing themselves. Historical legacy is also burdensome as they restrict one from being too different. A worldview dominated by historical criticism that justice and shade is not only relevant but also makes it difficult to generate new paradigms for creativity and even the struggle for equality and autonomy at both level and individuals of their group. Thus, the role of values endorse the more productive liberation strategy for oppressed bodies. The K resolves the entirety of the app's impacts because they're talking about how we need to move away from Western conceptions of what it means to be black and get rid of this idea that man's Copernican sun in the first place. But by representing blackness in a way that's only relation to men and to white beings in the first place, they just reify the harms they try to critique, which means the K solves better. Also, counterplan text. Thus the advocacy. I affirm that the value inherent in conceptualization of speech that exceeds man through habeas viscus, instead of trying to assimilate into the voice of man, we weaponize our noise and embrace its illegitibility. We use the noise and the buzzing of habeas viscus to access the freedoms that lie in frequencies beyond man's vibes and access other dimensions, other ways of living that are violent to us. This is a separate off, they didn't say that. Habeas viscus refers to a Hellenic theory of pre-racialized assemblages, James 14. Habeas viscus is Alexander Paul's term for racially realized mobilities activated by irrepressible mobilities of very exceptional populations. The pig is definitionally competitive. Viscous means sticky. What about black people is sticky? Dictionary.com 8. Viscous of a glutinous nature, consistency, sticky, thick, and is for heavy describing the property of viscosity. Don't let them defend this as meaning viscous like a liquid. Their James article's title is literally Notes on Wellhelius habeas viscous, or why some posthumanists are better other. Within it is a you only, no O. This is about functionally and textually repetitive. Viscous with an O means sticky, and viscous without the O means an organ usually within the chest of the body. We literally take a different action from the F because they do something that embraces black people as sticky, whereas we consistent with Wellhelius' original intent of analyzing racialized randomness. This also textually meta because plain bias. We take out the O. This also means the negative no solvency for the F form. So plan is nothing relevant in that context. Net benefits first. Conflating viscous and viscous represents the historical inaccuracy that implicit disregard for black studies. The Africans and our speech for racist studies, manipulating black scholarship problems of races. Turns case and outweighs on magnitude. Curry 10. African conceptualization of African Americans can lag behind black studies found works of truly understanding complexity of gray races and different by the refusal of white philosophy of knowledge works of black scholars. Consistency race theory remains unreal and empirically impoverished. No absence of middle and new preference. It allowed philosophers to celebrate the random productions of white thinkers by making rhetoric of post-civil rights era seem like consequence of white philosophers thinking. American philosophy maintains hegemonic exclusion of black thinkers, justifying exclusive focus on white thinkers. Current approaches of studying race perpetuate the underutilization of race theory. Philosophers not held accountable for historical factors of scholarship. Contributed conversations that explore racism and racism that bar blacks from producing scholarship in their own experience. This has a couple of implications. First is that it outweighs even on the policy making and the intent based on the consequentialist level of the 1AC because they embrace the theory that is literally not the same as the theory that the black scholar made it, which means they're just another form of white people and how they co-opt these forms of theories in order to mischaracterize them in other ways, shapes, and form to use them to their own advantage. I.e., you are only reading this in around for your own benefit. You don't actually understand the history and the theory behind it because in cross-examination, which is Biden, she literally defended it as meaning viscous and fluid. I did read the Shruthi card and the cards on case. I read everything else. And I marked the,
Can you, to read the treaty cards, can you just quickly cut out?
yeah, I'll just send out a version. And then, like, the part of the interesting part that has the space is the part where I marked it.
Yeah, so you'll just send the data.
Yeah. All right, I sent the right version.
Define blackness.
Sorry?
Define blackness.
I'm not black, so I'm not going to define it.
So only black people can define blackness.
Yes, it is the stance that the K takes is that we should
Okay,
allow black
so
people to
how
define it for
do
themselves.
non-black
rather
people
than in relation
discuss
to whiteness.
blackness if we don't know what it is?
You can ask black individuals what they interpret it to be. The argument is that there's no one way to be black. In fact, our card says that there could be 40 million
So
ways.
there are multiple
So you
ways
should
to be
analyze
black.
the different ways.
So your
in which
argument is
black
that there's no
people represent
concrete
themselves.
identity of blackness.
Yes, representing it always in relation to the white being or to man is what the app does.
So then
It
how
has that
should we
stratified
represent
notion of
it? How should we represent it?
Through postmodern black identity, which is what the K does. Rather,
The
instead
AF
of
is, but what does that mean?
no, that's not
What does that
the
mean
AF
to
is.
you?
The AF is a form of ontological blackness.
No,
what that
it's not,
means to
but what
me
does
is
that mean
rather than analyzing the ways in which whiteness throughout history have created blackness, and that is the only effect that it has, we analyze that yes, these have had an impact on blackness, but rather blackness should be allowed to create spaces for itself where it can have autonomous being and create its own identity, rather than it just solely in relation to white
so
being.
that's what the method is.
That is not what the method
How
does.
does the
It
how does the
represents
negative do
everything
that? How does the
man.
negative allow blackness to create spaces that are separate from whiteness?
The alternative does it.
Rejecting the AF does that.
No, it's in favor of a methodology of post-blackness. The Adams
What is
11
a methodology of
defines
post-black?
that. Which the Adams 11 evidence defines that. It
Is that
talks
in the
about how-
first AF or the first off or second?
First off, it's in the K.
That's the alt card. Can you
Yes.
explain the word in that?
Okay, so the alt card is talking about how we need to look through things through a lens of post-blackness rather than ontological
How do I
blackness.
look through a lens of post-blackness?
So, the quick quote from the card that defines it pretty well is that broaden the meaning of blackness to allow for more individuality of expression. There are 40 million ways to be black. So rather than having this monolithic understanding of what it means, allow blackness to create its spaces for itself.
Okay, cool.
absent
So
from
how is the
representation of
affirmative
whiteness.
ontological blackness?
Okay, there's a couple specific links that I isolated. First is that the entire overview of the 1AC is talking about how blackness is always in relation to this idea of the man. So the only way in which you talk about blackness is in
We
relation
define
to
dominant
white
structures of
the
the man. Where do we say that black only exists?
Okay, you
except-
also have a quote from the intro of the card that says like white being ... is the person who writes the scripts, which means
Right.
you
Is that
say-
not true? Would you not agree that whiteness controls
No,
the
I'd
world?
argue that blackness can make spaces for
Right,
itself.
but do you
absent
agree that whiteness
being
writes
does
the
not
script
write
and don't? Do you agree
No,
that
white
the-
being does not write the script. Black people can write their own
They
script. for
can
themselves,
write the
absent
script, but
whiteness.
who in the status quo is dominating structures?
No, in the status
Who-
quo, black
who is
people can
dominating
create these
the world
structures
right now?
for themselves.
Who is in a position of power?
That's not relevant to the
I'm
question.
asking you a
Okay.
question. I'm
Yes,
asking
white
you a
people are in a position
Okay,
of power, but
cool.
they do not write all of the scripts.
What do you
Black
mean by
people
write
can
the
write
scripts?
for
What is your
themselves.
interpretation of writing scripts?
Having your own ideology and a conception of what it means to be you.
Would you agree that white people have a written script for black people that is imposed upon black people?
Yes, it's imposed upon.
Okay,
That's not
cool.
a reason for you
Cool.
to embrace that by saying
Right,
like
we're not
it's
embracing
white
that, so that's
man.
fine. Thank
Yes, you are. Your
Thank
introduction
you.
says white
Let's
people
go
like
to
scripts.
the argument about curry. Could you explain the curry 10 card?
Okay, the Curry card is talking about how the 1AC is just a form of co-opting black scholarship, i.e. people don't take black studies seriously in the status quo, they misrepresent them, they don't respect them properly,
is that,
and they always represent them in ways that
is that
benefit white
because you
thinkers.
think that viscosity doesn't belong in Waheli's language?
It's not because I think that, it's because that's how Helios defines it.
Okay, cool. Advanced time.
Like, what the black scholar actually means in theory to be, rather than what you want it to be.
Okay. Ready, prep. Can you explain the pseudo species?
Okay, the pseudo-species argument on the K is that when you define a group only in relation to whiteness, or if you define black people only in relation to whiteness, the only form of identity that they have is constructs them as a pseudo-species. So if I'm always defining myself in relation to whiteness, white people call me ugly, so I say I am pretty because of that. That means that my identity only has value in relation to white people, which means I am a pseudo-species. In fact, I only have value in relation to one species. I'm not my own.
Thank you. Order will be AC. Ontological blackness, okay? And then Wahili.
Like the pick?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's just like a quote from a card.
Okay. Did you send her the document?
I have. Do you want the quote?
Sure.
I'll just put it in the email. Put it in the Google Doc. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Good. And I'm starting on roll the ballot, yeah. Extend the roll the ballot. Are you ready?
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Extend the role of bound of the opposites to disalign from man's Copernicus sun. Man is the dominant assemblage of humanity that structures their world, fleshes bodies that are stripped of humanity, as the marginals that do not fit the dominant episteme. When we define man, we're not saying that we ought to abide by the way that man codifies us, but she agreed in prospect that whiteness is the power structure that is scripting us and codifying the way that we're supposed to act on our bodies. We cannot just ignore this. We have to theorize power in a way that, one, addresses the way that conceptualizes a man, white, cis, heteropatriarchy, firm functions in relation to our bodies, and second, we have to find ways to exceed beyond man and address in the way in which what the methodology is. Let's go to the method, the advocacy of habeas fisc. Instead of trying to assimilate into the voice of man, we weaponize our noise and embraces illegibility. Right now, blackness is not something we can empathize with. It's not something that is seen as legible in the eyes of man or in whiteness, which is what dominates the world in the first place. We use the noise, we use our illegibility, we embrace it. The buzzing of habeas fisc is to access the freedom to lie on the frequencies beyond man's vibe and access other dimensions. This kind of space that she wants to create is the affirmative world. We do that by strategically engaging our legibility and making ourselves opaque and strategically unshowing ourselves to it in a way that can disrupt whiteness in the way it exists now. Her lack of argumentation for codification is the reason that when her office is going to fail in second, she can never solve back or have any of the impacts of the neg without the affirmative analysis, because we are the only one who does any theorization of the power that whiteness works in relation to blackness. Sure, I agree, I wish that whiteness didn't define my life, but it does. We have to acknowledge that relationship and acknowledge that blackness can exist independent of whiteness. But first, that theorization of power, there's a few impacts to the methodology. One is this optimistic survivability, which is the same impact she's getting, because the alt is the app, and second is the potential for a new world, which can only come when we recognize the existing world now. That ignoration isn't going to first. And we are not ontological blackness. Let's go to the K. Her argument says that self-loathing means that we are the opposite of man, but again, cross-apply the argumentation here that we have to understand the relationship that man has to us and the power that is implicated upon our bodies before we can escape. And let's go to the second argument of authentic testimony. I agree, no one should fail to define blackness for you, but whiteness is the thing that currently defines blackness because of the way that power structures operate. That's the entire James theorization. That's the theorization of the top. Look at the example of the wailing black woman. We don't hear something we empathize with, rather just an animal who is not something legible. Her moans, her animalistic growths are something that are not legible to us. The only way that we can make them legible is by community building and survival that the affirmative talks about, that the negative will never have access to without understanding why we're illegible in the first place. There's not a turn. Go to the Anderson card. She said that we can be like ontological blackness, but we are anti-essentialists. That's the entire thesis of the AC. This is a messy misunderstanding of how we even operate. The argument is the link. She talks about pseudo-species, she talks about pseudo-species. When we define self in relation to blackness, we are just another pseudo-species. But again, cross-apply the analysis about codification. I don't want to be seen as just a one of color. I don't want that to define my life, but it does, because whiteness is the thing that operates the dominant world. That means this argument goes away. We have to acknowledge it. First, she says that we can't totally transcend individuality, but the reason that individuality is there in the first place is because we need to be able to self-define and self-love and affirm the way and our blackness within the old world, as well as the way that we operate in relation to whiteness, because it defines our lives. Her go to the alternatives, he says, reject ontological blackness and is post-human. First of all, post-humanism is the AF. It's very clear that when we say in her advocacy are direct words from the James card. Flesh is not immobile, it just moves frequencies that are invisible to humanist modern episteme. Flesh is not an abject dome of exclusion. We're saying that ontological blackness does not exist. That is the first thesis of the entire card. That means one, her alternative doesn't work, and second, the perm is always going to outweigh her skepticism and dissatisfaction because the entire ass falls back to that because the ass is the K. And second, the theorization of power is the reason that the perm is always going to have an advantage. Let's go to the Haley argument. She said that, first of all, don't let her co-opt the argumentation we've done in theory. The pig is trying to co-opt the theorization and induce our label, which is not what we're allowing her to have. Second, go to the historical analysis card. We defend blackness as viscosity. We know that blackness is something that structures life, but that is fluid and it changes throughout. Historical analysis is exactly what we're saying in our James argument and our Rodriguez card in the first place, that viscosity is flesh. But even then, the way that Haley defines, word for word, the way she defines, I use the phrase habeas viscus, you shall have the flesh. This is in her book, Habeas Viscus from 2014. She defines it as you shall have the flesh. The way we define blackness is flesh, something that is independent of humanity. That is the exact definition we're sticking to. Yes, I defend viscosity, I defend flesh. There are things about organism, misrepresentation of how I'm showing you this argument. There is no offense there. It's a clear outvoter because of the method and the way we're winning the roll of ballot.
The order is going to be pick, K, so it's pick, well, actually, overview on the pick, K. are is that they have no good justification for literally co-opting black scholarship and changing it for their own advantage. The pick solves the entirety of the app, which means you can vote on it right away. The only disadvantage that they have is that we're getting rid of their theorizing. But if I win the Curry argument about the net benefit, that outweighs this. But if I win the K links to their theorizing, then that's also a disadd to their theorizing, which justifies me getting rid of that. But now on the line by line. First, they say that we're co-opting their theorizing, but you can extend the Curry evidence. They're the ones who co-opted black theorizing in the first place. This makes it the Curry evidence is the implication of this, which turns this argument. The reason why the app is uniquely bad is because they're taking a black theory of habeas viscus without the O, with the just US, and then they make it into something for their own benefit. Their like notion of them being able to redefine viscosity as being fluid and flush is literally the definition of white privilege, and exactly what Curry indicts, because it's talking about how you can't just redefine a theory that a black person came up with. That one disrespects it, which is what the argument that Curry makes. But two, it also shows that you're co-opting it for your own advantage, just like how white people often co-opt things for their own advantage, which just reifies things like racial hierarchies. This also leads to this also makes material conditions worse for black people because we don't take their work seriously in the first place. That's another argument that Curry makes, which means that the only reason that we take black scholarship seriously is when white people represented their own specific way, which means we never analyze black liberation strategies in the way that they were supposed to be analyzed in the first place. We only represent them in the context of how white people misrepresent them, which means the entirety of the 1AC gets co-opted by whiteness in the first place, which means they have no solvency, only the pick solves. The pick solves the right AF and the right harms for the right AF. Even in the document that they sent in the 1AR, when they're defining in Hellier's own words, I use the phrase habeas viscus. The way that they write it does not have an O in it. You can't just redefine a term that a black scholar came up with and then co-opt it for your own usage. This is completely just like messed up and like, just wrong. So the last argument they make on the pick is just that they defend viscous and in the context of flesh, but this is just a reason as to why my definition of viscous, the correct definition of what Hellier is actually saying, makes even more sense in this context. The James 14 evidence and also the dictionary.com evidence asserting this claim even more. The way that they define viscosity is like liquids being able to flow does not make sense in the context of flesh, because the correct definition of viscous without the O means things like an organ, means things like the body in the first place, which makes sense in the context of what Hellier is talking about, which is about the body and about flesh in the first place, which means that their argument actually flows my way. If we are talking about flesh in accordance with the proper interpretation of this theory, then yes, you should not use the O, you should use just VISCUS. It solves the entirety of the app. Their last argument is that their method is good and that we shouldn't get to co-opt their theory, but no, we get to co-opt your theory if you're co-opting black people's theories and then misinterpreting them just like how white people do that in the first place. And it's also not a co-option, it's just a proper reading of the harms of your 1AC, which means it's not co-option in any way, shape, or form. It's just the correct way to do your app in the first place, which means we solve the entirety of their app. Also, the last argument that I'm going to make on the pick is that, first, it solves the entirety of the app. They conceded all of my arguments about why it's both functionally and textually competitive, which is you can extend this class to flow now. But they've also conceded the argument that I made before reading the Curry card in the 1C analytically, that we are the only one who solves all the harms in the debate. Their harms by representing blackness as viscosity and something that is liquid does not solve any of the harms that they're talking about, because all their James evidence and Hunter evidence is talking about things in the context of flesh and in the context of the body, which means our definition of viscous is the only correct one that is able to resolve the entirety of the 1AC harms, which means they don't have any solvency, which means they can't go for case outweighs or their method good, or any arguments about why their role of the valid is good or how their theorizing is good in the first place, because your theorizing is incorrect in the context of all of your scholarship. Your advocacy text is literally the epitome of whiteness, because you've co-opted a black theory and then used it for your own advantage. So the pick debate is very clear. They've conceded the Curry impact, which has a couple implications that are just straight up conceded. They do the exact thing that white people do in the status quo when they take black theories and use them for their own advantage. This furthers things like material racism, because we don't take black theories seriously anymore. We only take it seriously when white people misrepresent in their own way, shape, and form, which means we just reify racism on black people and allow it to continue happening, which makes it worse. This outweighs on magnitude because it affects all black people throughout society because you co-opt their theorizing. They've also conceded that it solves the right AF, not this AF. But now on the K. Even if they win that their theorizing is good and they win that we're co-opting it in some way, shape, or form, the links on the case still functions as disadvantages and solves the entirety of the 1AC, which is the reasons why we are justified in co-opting their theorizing. The entirety of the 1AR is just a performative link into this K, because they keep talking about how whiteness defines blackness. This is a quote from the 1AR, and like the all fails because we have to analyze whiteness in relation to blackness. These are more quotes from the 1AR, and we also have to theorize about it in relation to our bodies. This is exactly what the K is indicting. The first Anderson evidence indicates that yes, even though whiteness is the dominant group in society, defining yourself in relation to it is wrong. It's a wrong way to go about creating a liberation strategy for yourself in relation to whiteness, because then all of your resistance strategies are only created in relation to what whiteness defines you as. I.e., if a white person calls a black person ugly and then you say you're pretty because they are wrong in the first place, that's exactly what the 1AC does, because you define yourself in relation to them rather than making yourself your own person and what you wish to be. That's the second Anderson evidence, which means they link to the argument about pseudo-species, which turns the entirety of the AC and means no solvency for a couple reasons. First is that if we only theorize about ourselves in relation to whiteness, just because white people are the dominant group is not a justification for this. Only theorizing about ourselves in relation to whiteness is exactly the creation of a pseudo-species that Anderson indicts, because we only think that we are valuable and only have importance when we are constructed in relation to whiteness in the first place. Their arguments about how white people are the dominant group in the status quo and how the app is uniquely good do not respond to this argument. Even if white people are the dominant group, you should not define yourself in relation to that dominance. Rather, you should create your own spaces so that you can define yourself separate of that, which means the entirety of the one I see is a performative reason as to why they just reify the harms they're talking about. Their arguments on case are like, we try to move away from the man's Copernican sun, but they're not able to do that because of the way that they represent blackness. It is something that is only considered in relation to whiteness, rather than something that can be itself for itself, which means the Anderson evidence functions as disadvantages to the entirety of the AC. All their arguments in the 1A are just more links into this K. None of their arguments are responsive. So I'm not going to go for the alternative as a reason to vote negative, but I'm going to go for the link debate as a disadvantage to the entirety of the AC, because it's a solving deficit, and it indicates that they cause further dehumanization, because you don't recognize black life as what it really is. That's the second Anderson card. You recognize it as something that is only created in relation to whiteness. So this round breaks down pretty easily. Vote on the pick. They're co-opting black scholarship. That's completely unacceptable. They conceded the Korea evidence, which has a multitude of reasons for this. Don't let them get away with it. Their own definition in the 1AR of their own theory uses VISCUS. It does not use the word O. So don't let them co-opt by theorizing. But also, even if they win that their pick is bad and that we're co-opting their theorizing is bad for the reasons that I indicted on the links to the K, because it does not construct blackness as its own being. It constructs it only in relation to whiteness, which destroys things like black autonomy and their ability to be separate. Vote next.
20 seconds. Right now. Extension of the act, starting with the roll of the ballot. And then the method. Then we'll go to ontological blackness K. And then the pick.
Just give me 1 second, just don't forget. Extension of app, roll of ballot, K pick.
Yeah. Extension of the act, roll of the ballot.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I'm good.
She still doesn't get it. The way that we're defining blackness is precisely so we can move away from the definition that whiteness has codified onto us. The role of the balance to disalign from man's Copernican sun. This means that man is the dominant sun, which we have to identify which power relations and which type of people are in positions of power before we can define ourselves independent of them. We're not saying that we should define blackness as oppositionary to human. We're just saying we have to move beyond human, not anti-human, beyond human, which is the precision of the James card in the argument. Instead of trying to assimilate to the voice of the man, or instead of trying to make ourselves relational like she's claiming that we do, we weaponize their noise and embrace its illegibility. Again, James, we use the noise and buzzing of habeas viscus to access the freedom of life on. There are two impacts of cheese conceded, which is the reason you're going to be voting us up. What is the optimistic survivability? This type of being beyond human is the only thing that we have access to, which is the same impact she's linking to, because she is advocating the same thing as we are. And second is the potential for a new world. That can only come at first. We have a theorization of power that lets us escape this world. We're not saying that we are in relation to anti-whiteness. We still have to identify whiteness as something exists, but then we go beyond that whiteness to describe ourselves in the way that she wants us to, not in relationship to it. That only happens in the app world with our theorization of power. She does nothing to rejecting the app, doesn't have the theorization of power, which means she's just co-opting our theorization of power when she tries to permit. Let's go to the Haley arguments. First, she says, first of all, if we're winning that the app doesn't say blackness is ontological, then there's no link or impact of the way Haley argument. We understand blackness as a racialized assemblage constitutes the historical, sociocultural, and temporal conditions that dictate these things do not magically move away, but rather they move across shape and time. They are still liquid because these things shift. It is not a controversial thesis. It's obvious what it means to be black in 2013 or 2017 in America is different from what it means to be black in Sudan in 1960. We know that blackness shifts, but the structures are still there because you're defined by whiteness. That means that we do not recognize blackness as ontological, i.e. we do not recognize something as an abject. Furthermore, James explicitly says that blackness has potential. It is not something that's abject or object, which means that blackness is not ontological in our definition. She tries to say that we try to define whiteness in relationship to blackness, but all of our links are predicated on ontological blackness. Don't let her get away with having an impact on this. But even then, the codification argument applies. She doesn't address how codification is the way that we're implicit on. We have to move beyond that. That argument goes away because we do not say blackness is ontological. Furthermore, her thinking that we do say blackness is ontological is just in the form of what only she thinks is legible. She only understands the legible parts of the AC, but we are saying the illegible parts are the parts we have to embrace. That is going beyond it, which is turn on this argument. Go on the pick argument. She says that the the Curry card outweighs the theorization and the K-links, but it doesn't because Curry says that we co-opt black theorization. First, let me just literally explain what happens. James uses the same rhetoric, the VIC-CUC argument, but the viscosity still applies because the thing I explained in definition, blackness is still something that is able to shift across time, but the way that James defined viscous is specific to the flesh. I agree, blackness is flesh, but not in the way that organs in the flesh is something that exists outside of whiteness. Whiteness doesn't think that flesh has meaning. Whiteness thinks that flesh is the black woman who is waiting for a child. Flesh is not something we can empathize with. I'm saying we ought to embrace the flesh that exists with us and identify to move along the frequencies of a man. Her argument is that we disrespect that theory. Obviously, I'm taking this very seriously. It's not a form of disrespect. It is just literally a type of non-reason to vote us down because the theorization of power as well as the codification moving beyond all of the impacts coming off the AC methodology outweigh anything she has with the spelling error or disrespect. This is not a form of co-option. And the fact that she said that she can co-opt my arguments because I'm co-opting is just another reason how she sees legibility. Very clear F ballot.